The Atlantic Ocean, a vital artery connecting continents and civilizations, is not only an essential shipping route, but also an unparalleled repository of human history. With its vast blue expanse and turbulent history of trade, war, and exploration, the Atlantic has become a vast underwater graveyard that guards the secrets of countless shipwrecks. Beneath the waves and often buried by layers of sand and sediment that have accumulated over millennia, lies a true ghost fleet. This heterogeneous collection of lost vessels ranges from the most sophisticated warships of the modern era to ancient and heavy galleons laden with treasures and exotic goods. These discoveries, which occasionally emerge thanks to exponential advances in marine exploration technology, deep-sea mining, or sometimes purely accidental finds, are much more than mere remains of wood and metal. They are, in essence, time capsules that offer a tangible, vivid, and often moving glimpse into maritime history, war strategies, the complexities of global trade, and everyday life in bygone eras. Leave a like, subscribe, and share. Let's begin. The underwater archaeology has established itself as a crucial scientific discipline for unearthing and understanding this submerged heritage. Each shipwreck discovered in the Atlantic, whether in the icy waters near the Arctic, in the warm and dynamic currents of the Caribbean, or in the unexplored depths off the African and European coasts, adds an invaluable and often surprising piece to the complex mosaic of human history. The recent and growing attention to these buried ghosts not only underlines the astonishing scale of what has been lost at sea over the centuries, but also highlights the extraordinary and miraculous preservation that the underwater environment, under certain specific conditions, can offer to these artifacts, freezing them in time. The Atlantic has witnessed and played a leading role in some of the most ambitious voyages, as well as some of the most resounding and defining maritime tragedies in history. Recent discoveries in different regions of the ocean powerfully illustrate the diversity, significance, and archaeological richness of this ghost fleet. One of the most impressive discoveries in terms of the extreme depth at which it was found and its profound historical significance is that of the USS Samuel B. Roberts, affectionately known by its crew as the Sammy B. This American warship, a John C. Butler-class escort destroyer, participated with near-suicidal bravery in the epic Battle of Samar during World War II. It was found at an astonishing depth of almost 7,000 meters in the Atlantic Ocean. It should be clarified that, although the BBC report places it in the Atlantic, the most famous and significant discovery of Sammy B was in the Western Pacific, in the Philippine Sea being the deepest known shipwreck. The ship was remarkably intact, a silent testament to the exceptional preservation offered by the frigid, dark, and anoxic abyssal waters. The discovery of the Sammy B is a monumental milestone in deep-sea exploration, not only because of the technical difficulty involved in working at such pressures and distances, but also because of the deep emotional connection it establishes with the heroes who fought and died on board. The shipwreck represents a sacred war cemetery and a solemn reminder of the sacrifices made in the global conflict. Its state of preservation offers historians, naval engineers, and archaeologists a unique and invaluable opportunity to study the naval engineering of the time and analyze the detailed impact of combat on a warship of that period. From the height of the century 16 until well into the century 18, the Atlantic Ocean became the main artery and umbilical cord of the vast Spanish Empire. This is the route used by the famous galleons that transported huge quantities of gold, silver, emeralds, spices, and other precious goods from the colonies in America to Europe. Tragically, many of these sailing giants never reached their final destination, succumbing to ferocious tropical storms, relentless attacks by privateers and pirates, or catastrophic navigational errors. Numerous Spanish galleons have been found sunk with enormous cargoes of precious metals in strategic waters. The coastal waters and continental shelves of Portugal and Spain, for example, are a crucial point on this historical route, where the presence of these shipwrecks is notably significant. These discoveries, often disseminated through multimedia platforms, have captured the popular imagination, igniting the eternal myth of sunken treasures. The location and study of these galleons not only have potential economic value, although today most nations consider them inalienable heritage and prohibit their commercial exploitation, but more crucially, they provide a detailed and nuanced chronicle of transatlantic trade, geopolitical power dynamics, and the economic complexity of the early globalization era. The Fleet of the Indies, ***. This regular and vital convoy, as it was known, forms a central and defining part of the buried ghost fleet. The Atlantic coast of Africa, especially notorious for the dangerous and cold Benguela Current and its treacherous weather conditions, is another key epicenter of historical and modern shipwrecks. The area near Cape Town, at the southern tip of Africa, where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans meet, is a veritable and extremely dense underwater museum. This section of the Atlantic is particularly notorious for its high concentration of shipwrecks from all eras. Some lie under deep layers of sediment, well protected, while others are more accessible in shallow waters. These remains constitute a valuable national heritage for South Africa, telling stories of European expansion, vital trade routes to Asia, and the immense dangers of rounding the Cape of Good Hope, historically known as the Cape of Storms. The rigorous study of these sites helps to understand the interaction of various maritime powers in the region and the development of coastal infrastructure. One of the most unique and geologically revealing shipwreck discoveries was that of the Good Jesus, a Portuguese ship from the 19th century, 16 ***. What is extraordinary about this shipwreck is that it was not found underwater, but emerged from a desert landscape in Namibia. Diamond miners discovered it literally buried in the sand, far from the current shoreline, dramatically illustrating how long-term geological changes, coastal advance and retreat, and wind sedimentation can bury and then expose remains. The find was extraordinary, with the ship filled with treasures, including thousands of coins, gold and silver ingots, and artifacts that provided an unprecedented insight into life and trade during the age of exploration. This case underlines that the buried fleet is not always submerged under the sea, but also under the sand of coastlines that have undergone profound geomorphological changes. Leave a like, subscribe, and share. The fundamental reason why these ships transform from mere wrecks into a buried ghost fleet lies in the natural and relentless processes of the ocean floor. Primarily these dimentation. The Atlantic, especially in areas near the mouths of large rivers, such as the Amazon or the Congo, or near continental shelves where the water is shallower, experiences a constant and massive movement of terrigenous and biological material. Over hundreds or thousands of years, the movement of water, coastal erosion, turbid currents and gravitational flows transport immense quantities of sand, mud, clay, and organic and inorganic debris. These materials settle slowly, layer upon layer, covering and encapsulating everything on the seabed. A sunken ship, even a large structure like a galleon or a battleship, can become totally and deeply buried in a slow but relentless process. This layer of sediment not only hides the remains from view, but, crucially for archaeology, acts as a protective and stabilizing layer. By drastically limiting exposure to dissolved oxygen, sunlight, which promotes biological growth, and strong ocean currents that cause abrasion, sediments can dramatically slow the electrochemical corrosion of metal, such as iron, and the biological decomposition of wood and organic materials, such as textiles or ropes. That is why artifacts found under a thick layer of sand or mud are often in a remarkably better state of preservation than those exposed directly on the seabed. The specific conditions at the time and place of the shipwreck also significantly influence the subsequent burial and preservation process. ***, calm waters and underwater canyons. In some deep-water areas, far from coastal turbulence, the sedimentation process is gradual and uniform, gently covering the vessel. On the other hand, in submarine canyons or steep slopes, landslides or massive sediment flows can bury a ship almost instantly. Storms and coastal dynamics. Violent storms can throw ships against the coast or force them to sink rapidly in shallow waters, where the intense action of waves and littoral currents cover them with sand and mud in a surprisingly short period of time. Shipwrecks that sink near the coast are particularly susceptible to being buried by the dynamic and constant movement of underwater and coastal dunes. Burial by sediments is therefore a paradoxical factor. It is the main obstacle that hinders the discovery of these sites, but at the same time, it is the key and essential factor that ensures the preservation of this ghost fleet, allowing its stories to survive the destructive action of time, marine biology, and the sea. The ghost fleet buried beneath the sediments of the Atlantic Ocean represents an underwater heritage of incalculable value, with profound historical, cultural, technological, legal, and ethical implications. Each shipwreck discovered is not a simple accident, but a sealed history book waiting to be opened. The recovered artifacts, from heavy bronze cannons and navigational tools to personal tableware, Art objects and crew belongings offer an intimate, detailed, and tangible glimpse into life on board, social customs, and naval technology of the time. For example, the remains of Spanish galleons not only reveal the immensity of the riches transported, but also the logistical sophistication of the global trade routes that linked continents throughout the centuries. The Sami B, for its part, offers a silent and impressive testimony to the strategy, resilience, and horror of modern naval warfare. The discovery and study of this buried fleet are intrinsically linked to the development and continuous advancement of underwater exploration technology. Remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, high-resolution side-scan sonars, and high-sensitivity magnetometers are absolutely crucial tools for penetrating the veil of sediments and locating these remains. The challenge of finding a small destroyer 7,000 meters deep-sea exploration, as in the case of the Sami B, is not only an active discovery, but a powerful catalyst driving innovation in robotic engineering, pressure-resistant materials, and detailed deep-sea mapping. Underwater heritage also raises complex and often conflicting legal and ethical issues. Ownership of shipwrecks, especially those laden with high-value treasures, is frequently disputed by the nations of origin of the ships, salvage companies, and treasure hunters. The current international legal trend, strongly influenced by the UNESCO Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage, 2001, favors the protection of the site as cultural heritage and site in their resting place, strongly discouraging the commercial exploitation of shipwrecks unless for the purposes of scientific research, education, or museum conservation. The remains of warships, such as the Sami B, are internationally protected as sacred war graves, subject to the jurisdiction of the nation to which they belonged. The Ghost Fleet, buried beneath the sediments of the Atlantic Ocean, is a monumental and enduring testament to humanity's profound and intimate relationship with the sea. From the Spanish ships that served as bridges between the New World and Europe, transporting the precious metal that forged empires, to the heroic warships that lie silent in the abyssal depths, each wreck is a tangible echo of a dramatic past. The remarkable examples of this heritage, the valuable and profound Sami B, the rich and numerous Spanish galleons, and the shipwrecks that dot the dangerous coasts of South Africa and Namibia, conclusively demonstrate that the Atlantic is a vast, dynamic, and profound repository of human history. Thanks to the relentless yet protective geological process of sedimentation, these artifacts remain preserved, often in an astonishing state of conservation, waiting to be discovered by researchers, explorers, and archaeologists. The work of modern underwater archaeology driven by technology is not simply a romantic treasure hunt, but a scientific and ethical mission of historical rescue. While many of the ships in this ghost fleet have already been located, mapped, and studied, many others still await discovery beneath the thick layer of sand and mud, promising new and valuable revelations about our shared past. The Atlantic will remain for a long time the silent and inscrutable custodian of an underwater heritage that defines eras. Leave a like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.